Welcome to the MR2 Insight Podcast, where we explore the road of technology and speak with industry leaders about their experiences and insights. I'm your host, James Campbell, with over 15 years of experience in the field, ranging from your starting help desk job all the way to cybersecurity. And on this show, we'd like to dive into the latest trends, hottest debates, and biggest challenges facing the tech industry today. And on today's show, I'd like to welcome Tim Joos. Tim, how you doing today?
Nice to see you today, James.
Thank you for taking this time out to give a chat with us today. Why don't you give us a little background about who Tim is and what do you do, Tim?
My name's Tim Joos. I'm the CEO here at Warner Telecom. We are a enterprise technology management company that helps clients to connect, optimize, and manage their IT. We define IT as landline, mobile, cloud, and software services. So lots of different ingestion and automation tools to move quicker, faster, better in the complex world of IT today.
Awesome. And how did you get into the vast world of IT?
I've actually been here now 21 years, so I'm legal from a drinking age perspective now, from a work perspective. I started in '02. A family member referred me to the company, and I've kind of worked my way up. I've had multiple positions within the company: account manager, help desk, Johnny do all, pretty much whatever it took in those days, and kind of grown with the company, and we've grown together, and it's been a great relationship. And our company's definitely got a lot going on right now, and getting ready for the future, which is going to be very bright.
Awesome. So a man of many hats, kind of starting from
Yes.
the bottom, starting from the bottom now.
Oh yeah, so I like that because it gave me the ability to learn it. It wasn't just this is what's happened, but I learned it, I experienced, I did things myself, and at that time, and I learned how to do things. And as I grow, I was able to educate and train people on the process, and not just reading a manual and say do it. I actually did it. I was on the front line. I was that soldier in the front line of the incursion, and in certain situations.
I love that process, or that kind of approach, right? Because you're getting both sides. You're getting the experience side, the knowledge, and my career kind of elevated by jumping to different jobs. So my experience has increased with every job that I take. I've had some experience from my help desk, taken what I learned there and applied that to the next position that I was in. And as my path kind of grown, from my experience in the past, has kind of led me to what my overall tech spectrum is today.
Yeah, it was an interesting. So like in that role of like learning to do lots of different things at the beginning, about 3 years into my career here, at about 2006, I was put in the position and said, "Hey, we have a problem. We need to figure out how to grow and support our clients in a different way." So at that point, we literally had a legal paper that we were taping together every day, looking at all the orders and all the transactions are going on, having multiple hour meetings every day, and there wasn't a lot of work getting done because we're just trying to get status. So we developed at that time a process and a technology that we call the OT, that helps to track all those things. So it's a common repository of information from both the service and invoice side to help the clients to connect, optimize, and manage. And we've grown from there. So that tool has given us the ability to grow into larger customers, support partners in a better way. We're a 100% channel driven organization. So it really gives us that system right there is really the foundation of our company, along with our people. And then from there we just grow it out. And the great thing is, we own this technology. So as we need to make changes to adapt to different technologies, we can. As we need to make changes to changes in the marketplace, we can do that without being dependent on something that we don't control or a release that we don't control. So that's been a great weapon for us in the marketplace is that system.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're again the frontline type of thing. You're putting yourself in the other person's shoes. From a customer's perspective, understanding what their needs are, and to be able to give a solution to those needs for them to better take care of their IT organization, IT infrastructure, or what have you.
Yeah, I think the worst thing to do is make decisions based on bad data, right? Hey, I decided
100%.
to change this service provider. Oops, no, you were still in term. You got a termination liability with the other provider. I want to upgrade my circuit. I want to make this change. I want to I want to move these services. I want to capture this data and do this differently. And you make that decision, but then there's a gotcha. So our service is live, and then we have organic data that's coming in every day from different systems, from the carrier invoices systems to the the advanced database systems like a ServiceNow or a Salesforce. And all this data is talking, and the client can come in and make an informed decision in 10, 15 minutes. Any decisions that they make, our team will go through and implement that. So that's really valuable because you're making decisions based upon what the right decision, quote unquote, upon bad data at the time is. It could be a big challenge. Could create a lot of residual effect downline that you want to avoid. So live data, validated data is a huge part of what we're doing on a monthly basis. And as much as we're automating process and procedure for our customers, we're doing the same thing for ourselves. Jobs that used to take us 400 hours a month back in 2005 now take us 50 hours because
Wow,
we've automated all these different things and put these things in place to move quicker, faster, better.
that's awesome. So, would you say that's kind of one of the biggest challenges that's kind of facing the industry, or what do you see in your organization kind of see as one of the biggest challenges, and what do you guys do to kind of caveat that?
Yeah, I think the one of the biggest challenges is the rate of change and what does change mean? So change means, okay, I need to upgrade my network to support these business needs. How do I do that? How do I account for that? How do I transfer into that? How do I account for what used to be there? And then how do I give the business leaders the information they need? Like, because if you look at these organizations, typically their IT team's not talking to the finance team, and then everyone's kind of like separate silos. So one of the big things that we do is we pull all that information together through credential-based access, where they can log in and see what's out there and know what and make that informed decision and do the right thing based upon true and valid data.
Gotcha. So in that scenario, do you kind of take what their existing infrastructure is and kind of bring it in or integrate with that, or is it kind of
Oh yeah,
like a complete cloud solution or a different infrastructure that you can provide for them?
yeah. So the great thing is that we can straddle both the past, the present, or all three: the past, the present, and the future. So we're gonna come in, we're gonna optimize the present and the past to make sure they have all the services that they need and they're paying the right price for those services. We're gonna document that. We're gonna automate that process and procedure moving forward. We're going to give them the ability to make changes or to pay their files or to do different things like that quicker. Then moving forward, okay, here's where you're at now. Do you need to upgrade your services? Do you have more remote users than you did 4 years ago? Do you need to change your cloud infrastructure? Do you need to decrease it potentially based upon business changes? So sometimes people will deploy based upon a thought. Oh, I think I need X or I think I need Y, but what's the true value? And that true value can change month to month or quarter to quarter depending on the client's needs. And that's where that visibility through a single dashboard of their landline, mobile, cloud, and software services really gives them the information to make informed decisions about what's best and how to proceed.
So one thing I noticed, at least with people, as far as like trends and things goes, where everybody says, you need to get to the cloud. Or I think the cloud is kind of one of the things where people want to be or think they need to be. And a lot of companies that I've seen when they make that migration to the cloud, they're not truly optimizing it to utilize the cloud. They'll take exactly what they have as far as the regular infrastructure. Sure, you got to the cloud, you don't have an on-prem server anymore. So in that case, you're evolving a little bit though, but you're still basically doing the same thing, except your server is from one spot to another, and they're not utilizing a lot of the best of breed, either using some type of logic
Design,
apps,
yeah,
designs,
design technology. Yeah,
infrastructure, networking,
a good
exactly.
example, we had a client before we were engaged. They had about 100, or I'm sorry, about 1,000 DIDs across the organization that were on analog trunks. It was a very,
Makes sense.
very old technology. So their thought process was, we're going to move all these to the cloud, to the SIP, UCAS type of provider,
Mhm.
but we're going to keep the same trunking. So we're going to keep 1,000. We need 1,000 lines because that's the number of lines we have today. It's like a 1-to-1 ratio. We came in, we ran reports from their systems that we have the ability to connect into their routers, the pool utilization. Also, their provider had some utilization reports, and we found out that their peak average was about 150 simultaneous calls. So it's a logical change. Like, let's change your commitment from 1,000 trunks down to about 250 to 300, depending upon the bursting and the carrier's design and how they can do that. So there's this intelligent thought like that, and then now we have from the moving forward side, we have checks and balances. So if they're ever hitting 225, we know automatically that we can go out and make a change, and we put those variance cards, those checks and balance cards directly on the data. So it's not just like, well, Tim got to remember every month to see if they're over 200 trunks. It's, hey, there's a system that's going to alert us. That they can come into, and then we're going to help implement those changes as they need them moving forward. And maybe the business need is less in the future, and we can make those changes. But it's a lot. It's all to us. It's all about optimizing that network from a service and cost perspective to only the services they need and the price they're contracted. And then from there, it's managing the data forward. And it's not just data from an invoice or service side; it's also from a business decision side. So maybe site 50 is their largest location. They need X, but now they've downgraded and they need X. So those are the things that we want to use that intelligent information to connect into the decision making process.
That's awesome. A lot of people don't think about that. You mentioned, as you're kind of talking to that scenario, the automation of that. A lot of companies don't utilize automation as much as they should to be able to
Oh no.
to just be able to proactively say, oh, hey, we don't need 850 some odd, DIDs or anything in our organization. And also just to kind of proactively say, oh, we're hitting that threshold and getting those alerts and getting notified. I've had similar issues of just kind of reactively fixing issues instead of being able to proactively fix an issue before it even hits my end user. Either whether it's some type of SharePoint issue where we ran out of space, or if it's mailbox being completely full, or running out of, as you mentioned, kind of like DIDs, or not, or just overly using it so much. But automation is a tool that I think everybody needs to utilize, and everybody kind of needs to dabble in a little bit.
Yeah, you got to connect that data. You got to be able to say, maybe it's from the HR side. Joe's no longer with the company. Let's decommission his phone, and let's make these other changes to get rid of the services that he have. We can do that through the data talk, and that's the difference of that phone maybe billing for 2 or 3 months until somebody catches it by accident, and then that being done in that same billing period. So there's a lot of value to connecting your data, and we're trying to get ideally 6 or 7 different connections to different systems, the carrier systems, our systems, the clients, like maybe it's their Oracle instance or the SAP, and then we make everything talk, and we're creating jobs that really make it efficient. We had one client that had a 4-person team handling payments, and the payments were late. They had service shutoffs and late fees, and just a challenge of situations. So we came in. We gave that team the tools that they need. Now, in the last 7 years, they haven't had one late fee, one service shut off, and that most of that team's been reallocated elsewhere within the organization. I think there's one part-time person left because their job went from full-time equivalent down to about 30 hours a month, just making sure that they're handling things on their end. So again, making the data talk, automating that process is a huge help to these organizations to move in a better way from an automation side.
Absolutely. So, helping organization stuff. What would you say? What's a good fit for Warner Telecom for an organization? I know there's a lot of stuff. Like me, from my organization, I like keeping a lot of things in house. Security. Talk about like finance and payroll and everything like that. Versus actually using an external source for that. That might be more of a control freak on my end, just to maintain control and to have everything within my own walls. Just safety measure, safety barrier. How would you approach certain companies kind of like that? I guess a control freak like me that doesn't want to relinquish control.
No, I think the first thing is going to sound funny is they got to raise their hand and say, "I have a problem." If there's not a problem, and then you have Johnny in the corner with a spreadsheet doing these things and everything's fine, that's great. But another great example we had is we had a client that was working 200 hours a month, this one person. And if they weren't there, the bills weren't getting paid, or the service changes weren't being done. They're on vacation, they're getting bugged. Hey, we got to get this done. Very dissatisfied user from the internal company side. So they engaged us. We actually got a call from this past December saying, "I just took 2 weeks off. I've never had 2 weeks off without being bugged in my life. Thank you very much." Now, to me, that's a win.
That's a total win.
That's a great experience because they're using the tools that we have, and we're here to help drive that. And I mean, I think you got to think about it, like, do you want to dig a hole with with a shovel or a backhoe. The shovel's going to get the job done, but you're going to have blisters when you're done. You're going to be sweating, and your back might hurt. Now with the backhoe, you can sit in there, use the joystick, and be done with it in a quicker, faster, better mentality. So that's the difference. Especially with technology, you got to adjust, or you're going to be left behind. And I think we got a great set of tools, which is one tool that I don't never talk about enough. Is our data integrity tools. So we have data integrity on all the data. So it's not just that we receive data. Is it right? Is it in the right format? Is it the right number of digits? Should it be numeric and it's a number, or vice versa? From an alphanumeric perspective, those are all the things you have to have in your data when you live in a data world. Or again, we get back to you're acting on bad data. You're making a decision. Maybe it was loaded wrong, or whatever it is, from the feed, or maybe it came twice. So we have like, it's like the Star Wars analogy. It's the rule of two. So we always got to, number one, make sure we get the data, and then make sure we don't get the data twice, or whatever those type of things might be. So you got to be, if you don't have data integrity in today's world around the information that you're ingesting, you're basically just acting upon bad data.
Good advice. Definitely. As far as, I guess, looking into the future, as far as like where the industry is kind of going and where it's shaping, where do you think the industry's where it's heading to in the next 5 years or so? The trends that it's going.
Yeah, it's weird. Like you hear a lot about like clients going from cloud back to premise-based services. I think that gets back to not having the right checks and balances in place for some of the services that they've deployed. And the one thing about us is it's all data to us, right? As in information. So it doesn't matter if it's $100,000 a month cloud spend, or $2 million a month landline spend, or mobile spend, or software spend. It's all data that we're going to ingest, go through our 33-step check and balance process to make sure the services are right and the costs are aligned with the contract, and help them manage that. So the value of our service being a single pane of glass across all these services, and whatever the next service might be, makes it great. But I do think there'll be some clients making that change to some premise-based services potentially. If you're reading some articles out there, I do think potentially it's a mistake. I think they just need the right checks and balances in place to make sure that they're not overspending in the cloud side for things that they don't need. Job disbursement, overutilization, underutilization, chargebacks. Like one of the bigger things that we're seeing in the cloud side right now is tagging. The clients haven't really, 4 years ago, everything went crazy. And they had to turn up the cloud to support their business, to keep it running. But now they need to start tagging that data to these cost centers and charging back. And that's a big thing out there right now. I think we have a pretty unique way of doing it. We're not dependent upon the big three to do that. We can do it right in our system, make the change, make it live, not dependent upon the carrier to make a change. So it's some pretty cool things that we're doing there.
I'm guilty of that. You just mentioned tag. I felt attacked. I haven't tagged anything in my cloud organization.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I
I
think
need
it's
to do
good.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some big things there, and there's small things, but they add up. Maybe it's all of a sudden, all right. So we're spending $500,000 a month in cloud, and it's all going to the IT budget, and that's less things that you can buy. Instead of, now let's push this out amongst 40,000 different cost centers to all the different groups, and they're all paying, I don't know what the math is there, maybe $100 a month per group, and everything's fine, and you just opened up your budget pretty good.
Tim, I feel like you're calling me out, my friend. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
one of those things, dude. Like, and that's not a lot of. And there was a previous podcast we did a couple of weeks ago about a gentleman who is his primary goal is for cost management and like invoicing system and things like that. And I think the majority of people, when they look and when they have a budget, I have a $5,000 budget for my Microsoft Azure cloud. And as long as I'm below that threshold, then okay, I'm good, right? I don't really take the look at the line items to see if I'm not
Yeah.
using certain storage space, if I'm not using, if my compute whatever is too high or too low, or what have you. But the second that goes over that budget of $5,000, okay, how do I get it back below that line?
Yeah.
Instead of totally optimizing my cost and making sure that I can either have a little bit of playing room for utilizing either new tools, experiment a little bit in that sense, while still maintaining a solid budget of what I know I'm using, what I need, and not overly spending or overly doing anything in that.
Yeah, I think
sense.
contract renewals is a big thing, kind of, because you like, I'd say again, I've been here 21 plus years. So, back in the day, the contract came out of term. The carrier just, oh, you're month to month. It's, you're going to stay the same rate. You're going to still pay the $800 a month for the circuit that you have. Now, when that contract, the second that's out of contract, and then if it's a tariff service, they're jacking it up to nine. We just had a client that was paying, $900 a POTS line for, I think it was like about 17 lines,
Wow.
and they had a T1 that went from $700 a month to $21,000 a month. So if you're not proactively managing these events, contract renewal, contract changes, service changes, you're going to be in the situation where you're going to be blown out of the water from a budget perspective, and having to have that deal with the repercussions of that. So getting a system in place that manages that is huge. Another way, just talking a little more about how we connect data. So we've developed a system where the client can manage their outages. My circuit's up, my circuit's down. Everyone deals with outages, right?
Yep.
But no one has the ability to get a credit, because you have an SLA, and if you're outside that SLA, if the carrier is outside that SLA, you should get a credit, but you have to request it. So we developed a process where the client works their system, they resolve their outage, they notify us. It could be an API from like ServiceNow to us into our system. We go out to that provider and we request the credits. We just had the client that we initially designed this for about 3 years ago has recovered about $190,000 in costs over the last
Wow.
2.5 to 3 years. And that they've always had outages, but they've never had the ability to go out and request credits for those outages. So that is a big thing, and that can be for that customer that was 2% of their spend that they cut just by asking for the credits to be applied to their account for the outages that occurred.
Wow. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
lot. That's crazy to even think about. Um, One thing you mentioned, I actually kind of want to go back a little bit to something that you mentioned as far as trends, where you think that cloud people in cloud will actually pull back a little bit and go back to on-prem. Kind of off topic to relate, but there was a pretty big ransom thing that happened with a point of sale. I don't know if you ever heard of it, Aloha NCR, and
I heard of it briefly, yes.
they just had I think it was about the midweek of like April 13th or 15th or something around there, where they had a ransomware attack, and it affected a lot of people, except for people who are on prem. But anybody who used their cloud point of sale, strictly just cloud, they were down because their service was down. And it's interesting to think. I think a lot of companies don't have a good redundancy plan. Like if the cloud goes down, it's kind of like, okay, what do we do? Same thing,
Yeah.
almost like if internet goes
Yeah,
down.
like you just sit right there, throw your hands up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I don't know. This is like run around. That's all I can do. And same thing, almost like internet. Internet is such a crucial tool now. Once internet goes down, it's like, what do you do? It's crazy. I think some of that might put a little bit of fear into people of having their either services or products reliant on a vendor, so much to the point where the fear will cause them to kind of take back a little bit and host some of their stuff on prem again.
Yeah, I think you see some things in the news and from both a IT and political side where companies have made decisions that, right, you're not on my platform anymore, and they just made that decision, based upon their terms and conditions. Again, these vendors are managing things in a certain way, but then scenarios change, and they're, this isn't the contract, something I've never used for somebody. I'm gonna make a change to your rights to use my servers or my internet connections and things like that. So yeah, to be in a position where there is diversity, potentially diversity across cloud providers and or diversity to the prem, is something I do think they need to look at, because if you're not, random things happen. I mean, yeah, I mean, just look at again from a world perspective. Did we ever think we'd deal with a pandemic? No.
Right.
Yeah, our CEO, our previous CEO, used to always talk, "Oh, there's going to be a pandemic at some point. We got to be prepared for it." I'm like, "What's a pandemic? I don't even know what a pandemic." I had to look it up. I mean, I'm joking, but I mean, no way. There's no way that's going to happen. It happens. There are things happening today that we never thought would happen. There could be scenarios where, can your business be down for 5 days? And most people are going to say, heck no. And
Yeah.
you got to be in a position to have diversity and pay that, or you're going to pay later in a different way.
And that's super hard to prepare for too, especially if they haven't had a scenario like that. If never had a pandemic, so you don't really know what the events are and causes and what's that overhead's going to be. And the same thing, like never having a system down for 5 days and not exactly knowing what to prepare for in that scenario. But to your credit and to your point of what your organization actually does, though, is having that data and then also having those proactive alerts and just having just that good overall data source and everything coming in can help a lot with those proactive measures, I feel.
Yep. And I think too, like clients sustain, that relationship management with their vendors. It just can't be, they provide us great service, they provide us a good price. You got to be working that. You need to be building that relationship, meeting with them quarterly, so that when if something crazy does happen, you have a relationship there to get yourself to the top of the line and go there. Now, again, we're talking about very weird scenarios and unlikely things, but again, unlikely things have been happening a lot in the last 4 or 5 years,
Yeah.
and you need to be not prepared for the worst, but prepared for making sure that you can continue operating your business in the best manner if those scenarios do occur.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to be able to be flexible, got to be able to adapt, and just take what the industry gives you, which is
Yeah,
vastly
it's
changed.
sometimes I have a line here, but like sometimes it's an either or situation. Like, is it cloud? Is it prem? Sometimes the best answer is both.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes that's the best answer. And then, you get some, you have it's coming back and you're putting yourself in that situation. So even in life, like we have a situation, and, we're going to do this decision or this decision. I'm like, they're both pretty good. One's not really better than the other. Let's do them both and make them both happen across the board. So, I definitely think, thinking differently, and, there's definitely lots of things that have happened that I think unfortunately will continue to happen that we need to be prepared for as a IT community.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Tim, well, thank you for the conversation. This has been great this morning. Is there anything final words you would like to say before we sign off?
Yeah. At the end, I mean, our enterprise technology management platform can really help you, pull all this data together, be that single pane of a single dashboard for, your landline, mobile, cloud, and software spend, and definitely reach out and love to help you prepare for the present and the future.
Awesome. Anybody listening, be sure to look out for that. And Tim, thank you again for taking the time out. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, James.
Take care.